fraction that we spend on development assistance, the smallest fraction goes to democracy funding. Now, we do good things with development assistance, including healthcare, as I already mentioned, including food for Feed the Future. I supported the president on that. It's a very important program. I'm for that. We have economic development programs. They're all important. Electrify Africa. All of these are important programs. But the basic governance is the critical part for their future. I met with the government officials. I said, give us more support for what we're trying to do, develop an independent judiciary, to fight corruption, and to deal with. We need some help. In our own continent, in Central America, you got wonderful countries of Honduras and El Salvador. They're a good country. Guatemala, they're a good country, good people. You got leaders there who are trying to do the right thing. They got to be able to fight the corruption and the gangs and the extortion if their countries are going to succeed. Same thing is true in the developing countries of Africa. If they can't deal with the governance issues, their chances of success are nowhere as strong, and they need a partner. America's strength is in our values. We can help them. We got to do more. The amount of money we put into development assistance in Africa is disgraceful. Disgraceful. And it is part of the historic discriminations. You know, where we spent all of our time in Europe after World War II. I don't disagree with that. But you look at the amount of our budget support that went into Europe to rebuild Europe. Right thing to do. Asia today, we're spending a lot of money in Asia. Middle East, a ton of money in Afghanistan and Iraq. How about Africa? You know, there is so much promise there. We see that in the trade that we have set up. And this is this small amount of trade between the United States and Africa. I'm proud of what we've done in Maryland. I helped establish the direct ties between Prince George's County and Sub-Saharan Africa, and it's paying off. We can do so much more. So what I learned from this trip, there is incredible potential in growth between the United States and Africa. China's there. Big time China's there. I came into a beautiful new airport. The Chinese built it for them. They're very strategic, the Chinese. Give them credit. They're in Africa. Europe, not as much, but they're there. The United States needs to be much more aggressive. And here's the good news. As I talked to the leaders of the 4 countries I visited, every single one said the country that they want the closest ties to is the United States of America. They want to have ties with us. So we've got to get our act together here in the United States. It's nowhere near the type of support that we should be giving globally to development assistance, but particularly in Africa. And that's what I took back, and we're going to continue to work on it. I'm working on a bipartisan basis with Senator Flake, who is the chairman of the African Subcommittee, a Republican from Arizona, where 2 of us are working together on these issues. Working with Senator Combs, a Democrat from Delaware, who's a strong proponent of an increased role for the United States in Africa. So we are working together, and I expect that this trip will pay off well for trying to change some of the policies. I've talked to Senator Leahy, who's the ranking Democrat on the subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee that deals with these funding issues, as to getting some additional money in this budget to carry out this mission. So it was I'll tell you something, though. I don't know how you do it, because I know Reverend Weaver travels quite a bit. I was in 6 locations in 8 days in the southern part, and so I felt like I was. I never had time to get jet lagged. I was just always moving. But it's an incredible opportunity for those of you who have not visited the continent. Every area is different. Every area has different challenges. Maybe completely different challenges. I mean, the northern part of Africa is so much different than the southern part of Africa, and of course, Central Africa has its challenges on governance that we really have to deal with. Western Africa has had its problems with health. So each area is different, but it's a beautiful continent, beautiful people that want, children want is opportunity, same as we want for our children, and we can make a difference. The United States can make a difference, and if I have anything to do about it, we're going to make a bigger difference, positive, for the future of the people of Africa. Thank you.
Senator, thank you so much, and I know that owing to time, I think it's already about 10:27.
Oh, I'll extend it 10 minutes. I was the fault for it, not you.
Well, wonderful. Just to be able to provide some context for us so that we'll know, because of the press of this time, if you do have a question, I'll be blunt about it. Make it a question, if you don't mind, seriously, and make it brief. Let me just also say to the senator in the room, Senator, you have members that are official members of the PanAfrican Collective that represent, for example, historically black colleges here in the state of Maryland. Bowie State is represented. Tammy, would you please stand? Yes. We've got Morgan State that's represented back there. But also, let me just say very quickly that we've got members of this church here that have traveled, particularly to Rwanda and to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Would you please stand? Those persons have done so. Yeah, we've got 5 or 6 in here. And then also Dr. Nelson, who just stood, he is actually the medical missions director for Greater Mount Nebo, and he's been leading, he's a cardiologist, graduated from Howard University, but he's been leading our work there in Rwanda and the DRC. And we've actually provided health care for about 2,000 people over the last 4 years, and we're going back in August. But you also have people representing other countries within the continent itself. But we meet every month, and again, our whole purpose is to be able to create partnerships, genuine partnerships between those of us here in America with our friends on the continent of Africa to promote health, education, agriculture, energy. As a matter of fact, Eugene Faison has also been working very closely in terms of a very interesting initiative focusing on solar power to help with the agricultural sector. And so this is what this body represents. And in light of your work, we want to let you know that we're here for you to serve as a resource in terms of the information and the people that we know. There may be persons that ultimately we need to contact you and say, Senator, we'd like for you to, if your schedule permits, to see this person. Absolutely. And then we just want you to know that you have an open door to be able to come back at any point, or maybe any one of your staffers, including like Algene, that's right, yes. So let me just stop, and I think we've got time for a couple of questions, maybe 3. We'll start with Gene.
Thank you very much for coming, Senator Cardin, and we really appreciate the work you're doing and that you focused on and are going to continue to do. PanAfrican Collective, you got a little bit of a summary of that. And Reverend Weaver has just been asked by the USAID administrator to establish a meeting with her with faith-based organizations to see how we can do more. And perhaps you may have some good input for us in conjunction with that meeting that's going to occur in the next 30 days. So I wanted to put that on the table because that could be something that could be very relevant.
And Senator, before you responded, Gene, thank you so much for that. I actually met with the administrator, Gail Smith, I guess it's about 6 weeks ago. There were about 20 of us in the room, but I was the only one representing a black faith-based organization. We all know that there's Catholic Police Service, there's the Lutheran World Service, the list goes on. And when I shared with her that there seems to be very minimal involvement and connections between AID and groups like ours, and she said, Reverend Weaver, I'm commissioning you to convene a meeting. So certainly you're helping.
No, thank you. And we worked very hard to get Gail Smith confirmed. It took a little longer than we had anticipated. She's an incredible leader, and Senate Foreign Relations is her authorizing committee. So any issues you need in regards to USAID and Administrator Smith, let us know. I think she is very much focused on it. So let me just take you back about 4 years ago, under President Obama's leadership. We recognized that we didn't have a lot of money in development assistance. It's just not a big, it should be a much larger share of our national security budget. But the president was committed to making it go as far as possible. So under the previous administrator, they developed these, what they call a Global Development Lab, which is to take our development assistance and rather than just try to use it as a Band-Aid, use it as to how you can make permanent changes by energizing and leveraging and getting other groups involved. And specifically, we were talking about the non-governmental sector. And the non-governmental sector is very much private businesses, it's very much universities, and it's very much the faith-based community. It's also the NGOs. So all those groups we were trying to get involved to leverage our foreign development assistance. So There's no question that the potential here is incredible. First of all, you have ties in communities where it's much more credible than the United States government, in all due respect. Okay? You don't have some of the baggage that the United States government carries when it goes to other countries. We're number one in interest, but we still have problems. And you don't have those problems. So you can make those connections and therefore get much more credibility for the permanent types of changes that we're trying to get in the community itself. They'll accept it. Particularly when we partner with our academic centers, with our universities, our colleges, when we partner with businesses who are, look, they're in it for money, but they see, you know, you're talking about, as you increase the standard of living in Africa, there are going to be a lot more products bought, a lot more. This is a business deal, and that's why they're prepared to do these things. And then we have the NGO community. So yes, very much, and this is there's incredible opportunity here. It's been underutilized in the past. The faith-based communities have operated on their own, basically, and they've done a good job in Africa, don't get me wrong, but if we can leverage back and forth, we can do a lot more together. Okay. Again, it's collective.
Yeah. Wow. 1, 2, and then 3. Back there with Brother Leo. All right, so we'll start with our brother here. And again, if we can make it concise.
Right.
Given the fact we've got
So, Senator, I totally agree with the thrust of your policy change that you're pushing, but I think there are a couple of things that you should please factor in. One is the issue of accountability on the back end. Significant aid has already gone in, even though it's kind of misdirected based on what you said, and I agree. But there's no accountability for how those funds are being utilized at the end of the day. We don't see the impact it's supposed to create. And then some of that money is shifted back to the U.S. through a couple of different means. The jobs that they find for actual people from the U.S. who go to those countries, and the illicit financial flows that come from there. So hopefully there should be some consideration in your policy with regards to those 2 primary things.
I gotta be careful you don't get me started, because this could take this could be a long answer, because you're talking my language here. And look, first of all, I have a responsibility to taxpayers of this country to make sure every dollar that we spend is spent wisely, and that means we want to get the best return for the money we're spending, and that's not always been the case. So I couldn't agree with you more. Secondly, I will not support governments that are corrupt. I won't. I'm not going to help finance governments that are oppressing their own people. So we got to make sure the money are actually going for the intended purpose that it's going for. Third, we have to make sure that what we're doing can lead to the results that we're talking about. So if we're talking about, I mean, the best example is PEPFAR. We're talking about countries that will be able to deal with their healthcare needs. PEPFAR has been, to me, the model of success. Use that. But if you want to look to me where it has not been the model of success, look at Central America. We have not yet been able to, we spend a lot of money in Central America, and I'm for spending the money, but we haven't gotten the results that we said that we're going to get. And part of the problem is politics. So let me just talk a little bit about politics. So it's easy to get foreign aid where a company is providing the services. So if I have an American company that is providing